Hi guys. In this lesson, we're going to do another game. Hopefully you enjoy this one too. It's called Boat Race, and basically you're going to create a game where a small sprite, a boat, follows your mouse around a maze, and if you crash into the walls of the maze, you essentially you lose the game and you lose your life. So the easiest thing for me to do is to show you what it should look like, and then we'll make a start on actually creating it. So I'm just going to share my screen. So the game should look something like this. So if I hit this green flag, you crash into the walls and the game stops. If I move my mouse over and I crash, you get a message saying no, the game starts, and it follows your mouse around the course. You'll see in the bottom right hand corner there's a time. So the idea is to complete this course as quickly as you can. And where we've got the arrows, the white arrows, they're kind of speed boosts for you to have an opportunity to improve your speed and find kind of strategic ways through the maze. When you get to the end, you get a message saying, yeah, the game stops, and you can see your time and see how well you did. So now you've seen the game, let's look at actually programming. So I've already logged into Scratch. I'm going to click on where my username is at the top here. Remember, if you're on the create screen, some of the screens you don't see my class. So if you can't see it, you can just go straight to my class. If you can't, hit my stuff and it loads this page, and then you should be able to see my class. So on the class, you'll see there's some studios. We've got a studio here for you to put your files in when you're finished. We'll come to that later. But for now, the one that you're looking for is teacher resources. And you'll see one in here called Boat Race Starter. So if I click on that, it loads that up. And then all I need to do is click Remix, and this is going to make your own version of the game. So before I make a start, I'm going to get rid of where it says Start a Remix, and I'm going to put PJ from Mr. Pittman Jones. You put your letter or initial. It doesn't actually really matter because I can still see who made them. It's just making it your own. And you'll see over on the right hand side, I've got my backdrop already made for me, and I've got the boat already made for me. It's all ready to go. So the first thing we need to do is control the boat. So we want the boat to follow your mouse on the screen. This starts when the green flag is clicked. So the first event that we've got is when the green flag is clicked. And what we want it to do is to make sure that to start with, it's pointing upwards. So we're going to point in direction 0. And we're going to make sure the boat always starts in this bottom left-hand corner. So we're going to make sure its coordinates are correct. So when you do this, because the boat on the starter is already in this position, it detects that and puts in the coordinates of the position. Just make sure that that is minus 190 and that is minus 150 if it's any different. Because if you've moved this, for example, when you add that block in, can you see the numbers have changed? So just if they are different, just correct them. Then the movement throughout the game happens all the time the game is running, so it's happening forever. We want the boat to point towards your mouse pointer. So I've gone back to blue motion, blocks, point towards, and if it's anything different, then you can change it, but it should be towards mouse pointer. And what we're wanting to do is to move one step. Now, if you want you want the boat to move quicker, you can make that 2 or 3 or whatever. We're going to use the speed boost, remember. So 1 is actually a reasonable place to start. You can adjust it later if you need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that the mouse has to be a certain amount of distance away. So if I, when you hit the green flag and the mouse and the boat moves, if the mouse is actually where the boat is, we don't want him to actually move. We want the mouse to have to be a little bit in front of the boat. So we're going to just adjust this little bit of code that we've got here. I'm going to put an if block in here so that the pointing towards and moving only happens if the distance to the mouse pointer is more than 5 pixels. Okay, so I'm just going to put it to one side for now. We'll pop it back in this big block in a moment. I'm going to grab the greater than, because we want the distance to from the mouse pointer to the object to be greater than 5 pixels. So I'm going to make that greater than 5, but on this side here, we need the distance to the mouse pointer. So we need to detect that. We need to sense it. So under the light blue sensing ones here, you'll see that there's an option to detect a distance. Pop that in that first side. And if it's anything different, you just need to change that to say mouse pointer. Then all we need to do is pop those 2 blocks in and then stick that all, now that it's all put together, inside the forever. All that means is when I hit my green flag, the boat starts, and if my mouse is over the top of the boat, it will actually stop. And if I'm moving forward, anything more than 5 pixels, it will follow where the mouse is. Next thing we want to do is we want to, if the boat crashes, we want to do certain things. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the boat and we're going to just create a costume to show a crashed boat. So right click and duplicate the costume we've got so that we've got 2. We've got 1 for when the boat is happy and normal, and then we've got this one that's going to be the one that's hit. So I'm going to just change this name to say hit, so it's really obvious when we're looking in lists. Okay, so I've got normal, and the name at the top there, it says normal, and this one says hit. Then I'm going to basically break up this picture. So to do that, I'm going to select this option here, the one that says select, and it's got like an arrow and little dotted square. And all I need to do is just select areas like that, and I can move them and I can turn them. So I can break up the boat into pieces. Until you're happy that it looks like it's been broken up. Completely up to you. This is just making it look a bit like it's being smashed up and hit something. Okay. So I'm happy with that. So now what we need to do is add a little bit of code to this boat to switch to that costume and do whatever else we need, stop the game and stop the timer and things when it's actually when it's hit something. And what it hits is the brown color that are the lines on the maze. So to add that code, we need to make sure again it's on the boat. And I'm going to go back to the code view on this. We've already got some of this code already in here. And the bit that we're going to add is underneath this if block here. So we're going to do it still inside the forever bit, but underneath that if. So the first thing I'm going to put in there is another if. Okay, can you see that? So I've put that still inside the forever, but underneath the other if block. Then I'm going to add whether if it's touching a color. So the color what we want is that brown, and I'm going to pop that in there so it's if touching. Now, at the moment, when I brought that in, it says touching black, and it's not black that I want to do. So I'm going to click on that, and then in the options that pop up, the button at the very bottom is the dropper that detects the color from your screen. So if I click on that, I can go over to my game over here, and I can find the brown, click on it to select it, and then it adds it into there. And that means it's the exact color, because it's really important that it's the exact color, not just a close brown, but the exact one. So now that we've got it touching that brown, what do we want to happen? So the first thing we want it to do is we want to make sure that it shows that costume that we've just made, the hit one. So we're going to say switch that costume to hit so it breaks up. Then we're going to say a message. So if you remember in the example, it had like no. Okay, you can put in a message in there, so it could be oops or game over, or whatever you want it to be. And oh, actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change that from saying no. I'm going to do the say for 2 seconds, because what I want to do actually is say that message and then actually start again to give you another chance to try. So it'll say a message for 2 seconds, and then we're going to allow it to start the game again. So once that 2 seconds is up, we're going to put the boat back to normal so that it's not broken up anymore. We're going to point it in the right direction. So this is like we did at the very beginning. We're going to point in the direction and make sure it's 0. And we're going to put it back in that starting position. So we're going to get the go to X and Y. And I need to make it the same numbers. So it's minus 190 and minus 150. Okay. Now, the only other thing I need to do is when this green flag is clicked at the very beginning, we need to make sure that it starts with the boat. So if I stop this game now, can you see that I've got a broken up boat? If I click my green flag to start the game again, it starts as a broken up boat. So we need to make sure that when that game is started, every time it starts as normal. So I go back to looks, switch the costume at the very beginning when the green flag is clicked, but we need to make sure it's normal, not hit. And that'll fix that. Final thing for now, for this step of it, is that we're going to add a bit of code to say that when it gets to the end and gets that yellow part, which is the sand for the shore, we send a message and we stop the game. So again, this is going to be on our boat, and it's going to be inside this forever bit again, and it's going to need another if. Because all we're going to do is say if it touches the yellow, then we're going to do add some code. So we've already got an if touching color, so you should be knowing this a little bit already. But if I go to sensing, touching color, I'm going to click on the little color and choose the little dropper at the bottom. And then I'm going to go over and get the exact yellow. It has to be the exact yellow, remember, otherwise it won't work. So that's our if block there. What we want to then do is say what happens when it touches yellow. So we're going to have a message that says, woohoo, or yeah, or whatever you want. You win, or whatever the message you want to be. And once that happens, we need to stop the game. So the next stage of it is, how do you know whether you've done well or not? What we have in this is we're going to have it so that we have a timer, and your aim is to do this as quickly as possible. So as we've used in lessons before, we're going to add a variable to store the time. So I'm going to click on variables, click make a variable. Oh, actually, score and time are already created. I must have done that in the starter project already. So the score and time are already in there, which is ideal. We can use that. What we need to do though is add a bit of code to our stage that runs the timer. So I'm going to click on stage, which is down here. So I'm click on the backdrop, that picture there. All my code has disappeared. That's fine because we haven't programmed the stage to do anything at the moment. But what I need to do is, in fact, let's make the variable on the stage. I'd rather have timer on here. Okay, so we're going to have a timer on the stage. When the green flag is clicked, so the event that starts this is the green flag. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to variables. We're going to set the timer, because when the green flag is clicked, the timer always starts on 0. You don't start a game on 10 seconds, you start it on 0 and count up. And then we're going to have a forever loop. And we're going to be really precise in this. Before now, in previous games, we've counted up in 1 second bits. We're going to make this every 0.1 second. So I'm going to wait 0.1. And then I'm going to change the time by 0.1. And what you'll see, if I click the green flag, you'll see the timer goes up in those 0.1 seconds, because we want the timer to be really accurate to know how well you did. So testing that, if I click my green flag, I can follow it all the way around. Let's see if I can just bring this over here. And when I get to the end, it should send our message, and the timer then stops. So let's look at adding some boosters and some obstacles onto our game, because at the moment it's too easy. You could just easily get around that. And what we want is to make it a little bit more difficult, or ways of using strategy to improve how hard it is to get a good score. Now, I'm going to make sure I'm on the boat again. We've just done some programming on that stage, so I need to go back to the boat, make sure you're on there. We're going to add another if into this forever bit, so because the boat's going to detect something else. And what it's going to detect is when it's on one of those white arrows. But before I do that, I need to actually add the white arrow. So let's click on the actual stage itself, go to backdrops. We've got one already in there. No, I'm going to create another one. So I'm going to click on this first one here. I'm going to right click and duplicate. Get my paintbrush. I want the color to be white. So I need that saturation. Saturation is how much color is in something. Now, if you'll notice, it doesn't matter where I am on this top color slider. If I turn the saturation down all the way, it's white. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then I need to change the brush size to be a bit bigger. So I want the boosts to be a little bit bigger. And you can see how big it is by the dot that appears on the screen. So I'm going to have a little arrow here. Let's have an arrow up there. Let's have one here. have one here, and then let's have one there, and then one over there like that. Okay, so I've got boosts in the places I want them. There is also another backdrop that was put in on the starter project. I've just created one, so you can create your own backdrops. So if I go back to my code now and go back to the boat, we're going to put that if in here. So again, it's inside the forever. So I've now got quite a long forever. I'll just zoom out a bit, you'll see this forever is getting really long. All of these ifs sit inside it. So just zoom back into that bottom part. Okay, so if, and we're going to touch the color again. So if it's touching the color white, again, I can use a dropper, even though I know it's going to be that saturation 0. I'm just going to choose it from the game, just make sure it's exact, that's all. And then I'm going to add a move bit on here to make it move 3 steps. So remember, the boat originally was moving 1 step each time. When it's on the white, it'll move 3 steps each time. So it just gets that extra bit of a boost while it's touching the white color. And what you then should see, if I click the green flag, as I come up here, as soon as I touch the white, you see it moves faster. It's exactly what we want. Then the obstacles. So in the example, if you remember, there was an obstacle that rotated. So you got to time how your kind of passage through it, where you'd actually go. So we're going to add that as a sprite. So it's not going to go on the background. Remember, the background itself can't move, so it needs to be a sprite to be able to move. And all we're going to do, down in choosing a sprite, I'm going to paint it. I want to get a fill color, but I want it to be exactly the same brown as the walls of the maze. So I'm going to go down and choose this little dropper here. I'm going to go over to the game. This doesn't work particularly well on this. I need to do this in a slightly different way. So I'm going to go to the stage first. I'm going to choose the color, get the dropper, and make it brown. Then I'm going to go back to this sprite that we've just started to create, and you'll see that brown is now selected. It's a bit of an awkward way around it. It's just because when you choose the dropper, you can only choose the color from the sprite that was already there. So we've had to choose it from the stage first and then go back. And all I want to do is create a rectangle and create a very long, thin rectangle on my stage. And I'm just going to move it down so that you can see the cross in the middle sits in the middle of those 2 crosses line up. And that just makes sure when it rotates kind of smoothly. Okay. Now, if I look on the right-hand side of the game, that rectangle is far too wide at the moment. So if I just make this narrower, it's probably a little bit better. We can adjust the size a little bit with the scale in a minute. Okay. And now we need to make some code to make this rotate. So I'm going to go to the code view, still on this sprite, still on this the piece of wood. So let's call this piece of wood gate. I think that's what they called it in the instructions. And I'm going to put this gate over on this side here. Okay. But what I need to do is in the programming, when the green flag is clicked, we want that gate to start turning. So we're going to put when the green flag is clicked, it keeps turning forever. And what we want it to do is we want it to turn. So under motion, I'm going to make it turn 1 degree. Now, if you want it to turn quicker, make that 2 degrees or 3 degrees. If I now click my green flag, you can see that that now turns. And because it's the same color as the brown, if my boat hits it, the game will stop, and or you know that effort will stop, and you'll have to start all over again from the beginning. So if I get all the way around here, let's just test. So I want to deliberately touch it to make sure that it does stop. You can see it crash into it, and I start my goes again. My time is still carrying on going. That's all we're going to do in this lesson so far. In the instructions on Teams, there are some challenges for improving the game and doing some different things, which I'd encourage you to have a go at. Before you do anything else, though, the final thing you need to do is save and then share your project. So I'm going to click on File at the top here and do Save Now. And then what I'd like you to do is share this project. So this orange button on the top blue bar that says Share, you click on that. Shares it, and then if you click Add to Studio, which is just down here, you then have the choice, and I'd like you to add it to the boat race pupil files. So you click on Add, and then OK, and that's it. That's it. You've saved the work. It's done. You don't need to do anything else. You're all good.